So as just as in the last meeting, guys, so remember I just switched platforms from GoToMeeting so that we can keep these meetings for an indefinite period of time. The only way to really do that is to live stream it to YouTube, and then it will be saved there. So, and says this meeting is now being live streamed. So we're good. You can open the meeting. How do you want to start, Chris? Do you want
to start with the audit?
Maybe.
The audit committees. Yep.
No, do you want to record also? I can.
Okay.
Go for it.
Here we go. Okay. The audit committee agenda, call the meeting to order. Roll call.
With the IDA audit, right?
Yep. IDA.
IDA audit. Okay. Let's see. This has Trent, this is treasury report right there. We're down the report section, right? Trent, and the treasury report. Want to make sure I'm in the right spot.
Oh, just
No.
start at the.
No, at the
with
very beginning.
The green.
Yep,
the-
very first. Yep,
Yeah.
right there. Yep.
Okay. So roll call, the audit committee, Keith Defiant. Excused, Mark Letter present, Trent Trahan. David Hoover. Here. And John Bennett. Yep. Okay. We have a presentation, we're gonna waive the reading a notice of the meeting at this point. Presentations, we have Mr. David Bushy here for the 2023 draft audited financial statement. David.
Okay. If you want to turn to page 1 of the draft, this is the independent auditor's report. And the most important paragraph in the audit report is the second paragraph on page 1, which is the opinion paragraph. And in that paragraph, we're stating that, in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So that's what they consider an unmodified or a clean opinion. And that's the type of opinion that we've historically rendered for the idea. The next page I want to go over is page, the management's discussion and analysis starts on page 4. And I just want to go over the financial analysis section on page 4A briefly. So I want to go over the changes really in the revenues and the expenses. So when we go over the income statement later, it will make a little bit more sense. So in fiscal year 2023, the revenues were $129,000. Administrative fee income was the primary source of revenue. It was, for the most part, generated from Great Chazy Solar, 73%, and ERS Rouse's Point, 21%. And CHPE, there was about $7,500, or 6% of that was that annual administrative fee. Now that compares to the prior year revenue of $1.5 million, where again, administrative fee income was the primary source of revenue. And most of that, 82% of that came from CHPC as a result of that large project. In both years, there were 4 project applications, resulting in application of income of $6,000 in each year. And in terms of expenses, the 2023 expenses were $225,000. That's an increase of about $51,000. Most of that change is attributed to an increase in legal. Legal was $50,000 in 2023 versus $20,000 in 2022. Other operating expenses also increased about $21,000. And that's primarily due to bookkeeping and marketing. Bookkeeping was $9,800. There were no expenses in the prior year because invoices weren't generated and presented for payment until 2023. And also in 23, marketing expenses were about $9,300 due to a variety of plain marketing initiatives, and there were none in 2022. On page 5, the statement of net position. Not a whole lot of changes from year to year other than cash, as you can see. We went from 1.927 million to 1.831 million. The best place to see this is on the statement of cash flows on page 7. So the reason for this decrease in cash of 95,000. For the most part, you'll see the cash flows from operating activities where your cash received from administrative fee income, 123,000. Application fees were 6,000, interest was 453. Cash payments for administrative services, that's the services that the county provides, 132,000. And the general expenses were 93,000. Again, that's your legal and professional and your other operating. So your legal and professional is 57 and your other operating is 36. So that shows you the net cash used from your operations in 2023. And that's how you got from your beginning cash of 1.927 million to your ending cash of 1.831 million. Any questions on that? You want to turn to page 6? That's the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. A lot of people call this the income statement. And again, as you can see, as I mentioned earlier, the administrative fee income was 122 versus 1.5 million. That's the biggest change here, the largest drop in revenue. Application fees and interest remained about the same. Administrative fee income was around the same. Legal professional increased about 30 due to legal and other operating. Other operating expenditures are a number of expenditures. If you take a look at page 11 of note 6, you can see what that makes up. The breakdown of your other operating. So on note 6 on page 11, other operating expenditures were a number of expenditures, bookkeeping, marketing, software, which is your subscription and your technical assistance related to it, the pilot building, other office, which is primarily lunches, strategic planning, which was new during the year, sponsorships, membership dues. That's all considered other operating. That's where we categorize it. And as you can see, as I stated earlier, the bookkeeping and marketing were the two main reasons for the increase. 90% of the reason for the increase was just in those two line items. So if you turn back to page 6, again, you can see you're changing your net position for the year was a negative 95,000. So your net position at the beginning of the year was 1.916 million versus 1.2 million at the end of the year. Any questions on that at all? So the notes, so that concludes the financial statement review. The notes to the financial statement start on page 8. The notes to the financial statements really give more backup to the information on the balance sheet and income statement. They also identify the accounting policies that are that the IDA has. And one note, there's only a couple notes I'd like to go over. Note 2 on page 10. This is really the related party transactions. The related party transactions, as everyone would know, would be the administrative fees paid to Clinton County for $132,000 in each year, both in 2023 and 2022. And in addition to that, there's $4,000 paid to the county for the fill and collection and disbursement of pilot grants. Page 4, cash and investments. If you take a look at that note, the important paragraph on note 4 is the last paragraph, the third paragraph, where we're talking about custodial credit risk. And we're saying that the 1.8 million that you have is covered fully by FDIC insurance using the IntraFi network deposits. As the 22 also. Note number 7. That's a note about conduit debt obligations. The only item I want to point out there is that starting last year, if the IDA made any additional voluntary commitments, in other words, to support the debt service payments to the projects, in the event that they're unable to make the payments, we would have to disclose them here. And there were no additional or voluntary commitments for the IDA. So we just have to make that very clear. Note number 8, the $1.4 million grant that was awarded to the New York State Department of Transportation. Those funds This was a note from last year. The funds weren't received in 2023, but they're expected to be received in 2024. Subsequent event also relates to the Clinton Grant Facilitation Corporation in terms of a $16,000 grant to reimburse Elevate 15 LLC to provide indoor sports and events for the feasibility and market for a new facility to provide indoor sports and events and the utility of the Bacon Creek Center. And I think that's the last important note I want to go over. The second report that we always have to, when you do a yellow book audit like this one, we have to do a report in terms of internal control and internal control of compliance. And that's the report that starts on page 14. It's just a 2-page report. And in a nutshell, what it's saying is there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we identified in internal control, which is considered an unmodified report. There was a small control deficiency, which we'll go over in a minute in the management letter, but it didn't rise to the level of a material weakness or a significant deficiency. And the last report on page 16 is a report on supplemental information. So there's 2 pieces of supplemental information. One is a schedule of conduit debt obligations, which is on page 17. It's just the balance of the Lake Forest bonds and how much was paid during the year and when they mature. The second piece is the parish reports that refer to the IDA project information on certain pages of the parish report. So we're checking that for employment information, for exemptions, for pilot payments and other information to make sure it's clearly stated in accordance with New York State requirements. And that I would say is completed except for that one item. I think I got an email from you this morning about the one item.
We got this. Right? Yep.
It was 3.
There's 3 jobs. Yep.
All I need from you then is just that one page from the parish report.
I think it.
You did?
Yep.
Okay, so then we're all set. So there really would be no open item. So this would be considered a claim report.
It's a task chasing companies down to get us the information. Some of them ultimately always submit them right at the last.
So that concludes the presentation of the financial statements. The next report is the Board of Directors report, which is a required report for all audits. I'm just going to go over anything that would be of interest. So we have to disclose certain matters. We're required to disclose certain matters in the board report. The only ones that are probably noteworthy would probably be on the second page. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit. If you have any respect to disclose them here, there were none, obviously. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements. If we have to make a lot of journal entries in their material, if we have to make any journal entries in their material, we need to disclose and explain them here, in which there were none. There were some journal entries, of course, but none of them were material. Disagreements with management. We didn't have any disagreements with management on any financial accounting, reporting, or auditing matters. So pretty much a pretty bland and clean report. And then the very last item is the management letter. Now, a management letter in a governmental audit is optional. You can choose to, because if there were any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, which would mean they're related to internal control or compliance, they would have to be reported in the report on internal control and compliance we talked about earlier. If there are any internal control deficiencies that are not considered material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and in other words, just plain regular control deficiencies that are minor, then we can elect to put them in writing or communicate them verbally to management. So this particular condition is about your credit card policy. You have a credit card policy, and the only one thing I want to mention about the credit card policy is section 4 of that policy. So section 4 of that policy states that you should have the treasurer, or in his absence, the chairperson, review the monthly credit card statement and reconciliation, along with the receipts and the supporting documentation each month. And that wasn't being done. You do have your receipts, you do have a reconciliation, and you do have a board member signing off on the checks, which are all great controls. But you, in that policy, you went out of your way to say, oh, by the way, we're happy if you want the treasurer to review these and approve these. And all I'm saying for recommendations, just follow that section 4 of your policy.
You've noted that and will be done in the future.
Right, that's the last thing that's in the application. They're aware of it and we're taking steps to remedy it. So that concludes the presentation of the IDA.
Okay. You want to proceed with this meeting, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, David. Appreciate any questions. Okay. Reading and consideration of the draft meeting minutes from the December 11th, 2023 meeting. Need a motion? John?
We'll second.
Trent? Okay, any comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so passed. Okay, next item, public comment. Is there any public comment? We have no public comment. Okay, thank you. Old business?
There's none.
No old business, thank you. No. Okay, new business. Recommend board approval of resolution accepting audit and authorizing posting of same of tariffs. Okay.
I'll recommend the executive board.
Okay, John, second. Trent, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so moved. Other business as required?
None.
There's none. Okay, thank you. So we're adjourn the meeting.
We'll make that motion.
Sure. Yeah,
I'll second.
okay.
That's fine.
So, well,
I think you gotta get into the move on and get your Uber.
I'm gonna go to the CRC.
It's just not fast enough.
You need to tell me there's all there's to CRC. Okay. Okay, we're gonna do the CCRC audit committee agenda. Call the meeting to order at this time. Roll call for the audit committee. Mr. Defiant, not here. Mark Ludden, present. Trent Trahan. Yes. David Hoover. You have to answer for him too.
I'm here too.
David Hoover.
Here.
Okay, John Bennett.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Reading the notice, we're going to waive that. So we've got Mr. Atkinson, the presentation of 2023 draft audited financial statements. Mr. Bush.
Okay, so can I turn to page 1 of the Capital Resource Corporation audit report? Again, as I said, in the IDA financial statements, the most important paragraph is the opinion paragraph on page 1 under the opinion section. It says, in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's a clean or an unmodified opinion. And that certainly is a type of opinion that we've historically rendered for the CRC. Management's discussion and analysis starts on page 4. The financial analysis is on page 4A. And the second paragraph under the financial analysis section talks about the fiscal year 2023 revenues. They were $7,400 in each year, no change, in other words, from year to year. $2,400 from foreign trade zone fees and $5,000 from one foreign trade zone application. The 2023 expenses totaled $15,000. That was an increase of $5,000 from the prior year. Donation expense increased $2,500. 2023, there was a $10,000 donation to the North Country Chamber of Commerce to assist the 8 North Country transportation equipment manufacturers in attending the American Public Transportation Association Conference. In 2022, the CRC donated $7,500 to the town of Plattsburgh from the growth plan for the former Kent County Airport property. So that's the reason for the $2,500 increase. Legal and professional fees increased $2,600. That was primarily due to an increase in legal fees from revising the foreign trade zone fee schedule and reviewing a foreign trade zone expansion application. So if you turn to page 5, the statement of net position. And again, you're only going to see a few account balances that have changed significantly. One is cash, which we'll go over in a minute. The other one is the loan receivable from the Strand and the loan payable to Clinton County. And of course, they were reduced by $20,000 because of $20,000 that were received from the Strand and $20,000 was paid to the county. The change in cash, if you look on page 7, you can see very easily the cash decrease $7,400 from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Foreign trade zone receipts were $2,700. Other operating cash receipts $5,000. That's the application fee. Cash payments to suppliers of services were $5,100, and other operating cash payments, which are your 2023, were your donations, were $10,000. So that gives you a net use of cash through your operations of $7,400. 2,000 came in from the repayment of the receivable, and 2,000 went out for payment on the loan payable. And that results in a net change in cash of a negative $7,400. And that's how you got from your beginning cash to your ending cash. Any questions on that at all?
Mark, can I answer a question?
Absolutely.
So is this, if I'm reading correctly, $60,000 of the loan has been facilitated? And
It's
there's,
been paid back.
and there's 40,000 remaining on that.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah, there's a note on that too. If you want to look at it later, it's on note 4, basically, it states that we're saying as of December 31st, 100,000 was received from Clinton County and paid to the Strand. The first repayment occurred in 2021, and then the balance on the loan receivable and loan payable was 40,000 and 60,000 respectively. So there's 40,000 left. That's on page 6, statement of revenues, expenses, and change in net position. Again, you see the foreign trade zone and application fees were identical. The donation expense, as we said earlier, increased slightly, and the legal and professional increased slightly. So you're changing that position to negative $7,700. That's how you got from 80,700 to your 73,000 at the end of the year. Any questions on that page at all? So,
I'm sorry, Dave.
Sorry.
This is one to remind the committee that we did adopt that resolution to change the fee schedule. So next year that number will increase.
yeah, we'll go over that. So that concludes the main financial statements. The notes to the financial statements start on page 8. Just a few items I want to go over in the notes. Note 3, we talk about on page 10. We talk about your industrial development revenue bond transactions. So there are 3 industrial development revenue bonds with a principal of $25 million or so. There's a schedule on the back of the financial statements on that. If you would flip to page 14, we'll see that schedule. So that's your schedule under that. That's your behavioral health services and your CDPH bonds. And as you can see, no bonds issued during the year, the amounts paid during the year, and the outstanding at the end of the year. This has to mirror the information in the various report. Turning back to page 10, again, as with the IDA, there were no additional or voluntary commitments, so the CRC hasn't agreed to support the debt service payments of any of the projects if they're unable to make the payments themselves. Subsequent event on page 11, I'm sorry, note 7. In February 2024, the board adopted a resolution authorizing the CRC to revise the annual fee charged to operators in the foreign trade zone. So effective 1/1/25, the annual fee for operator will increase from $1,200 to $5,000. On page 12 is your report on internal control and internal control over compliance. And there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies disclosed, so that's a cleaner and unmodified report as it was last year. And the supplementary information we went over, which is the schedule of conduit debt obligations. So that really concludes the audit of the presentation of the financial statements, except for the board report. Any questions before I go to the board report at all?
None at this time.
Okay, so the board of directors report, again, this is required for all audits, so we have to disclose certain matters, significant accounting practices or policies. If there's any difficulties encountered in performing the audit or material adjustments or disagreements with management, we have to disclose those. There were none. So it's, again, it's a very bland, or clean board report. No other issues, problems, or anything.
How many audits have you said you've had a disagreement with management on? I'm surprised you have one with you.
Then he found management
Not
easy to work
many,
with.
not zero.
Not you.
Not zero, but not many.
We've been audited a lot by our, our county auditors, and obviously sending on the item. Never had a management discrepancy. Just curious.
You never had an argument, then, in other words.
Not with my auditor.
All right.
Any questions from this question before we move on? Hearing none. Reading and consideration of the draft meeting minutes of December 11th of 2023. Have a motion. David, the second. Trent, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so moved. Okay. Public comment? Any public comment? Hearing none? Okay. Okay, old business, other business as required?
No.
None to report. Okay, new business. Action recommend board approval of resolution accepting audit and authorizing posting of same to Paris. Motion.
I'll make it.
Yes. David. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, accepted. Thank you. They have no other business that's required that I'm aware of.
Correct.
And move to adjourn the motion. David? Done?
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh.
Opposed? Okay, so
Thank you.
moved.
Okay.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it, David. Good to see you.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Chairman,
Okay,
you can open up the IDA meeting.
well, I call the industrial, Clinton County Industrial Development Agency meeting to order March 18th at 12:32. Waive the reading of the notice of the meeting as well as the minutes, and ask for a motion to approve such. Dave,
We're in the IDA.
Mark, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Mark, are you gonna do the treasury?
Yes, so we'll do public comment first. And
Gotcha, got it.
you just waved it off.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're being too exact.
Okay, so let's see, the IDA, CCIDA balance sheet. The account balance at February 29th, 2024 was $99,880.51 in checks. Okay, and $1,487,504.35 in the sweep account, and $226,723.99 in savings. Okay, the income statement, the organization received $35.92 in interest income from the savings account. The organization received no other income. The income statement shows the expenses that were approved and paid during the month of February on the cash basis. Invoices received / paid in January. Clinton County Treasurer admin fees, $13,000 even. Credit card payment, $221.18. Corel tax and accounting monthly fees for February, $200. Bank charge / sweep fee of $10 for total expenses of $13,431.18 in the report.
Okay, any questions for Mark? If not, I got a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I'll make that motion.
John? Dave? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mark, looks like you're back up with the audit committee.
Audit committee. Okay, so we got the need for recommended approval of resolution accepting audit and authorizing post of same to Paris.
Um,
You're not gonna go through it.
I can leave it up to you if you want to. We have to.
No.
We have a motion to approve, I guess.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions or you want to make a motion?
Or should we let Mike make the motion? Because you
I wasn't on the committee, I think the committee knew. Go ahead, Dave.
You guys are spicy tonight.
Authorizing posting of same to Paris.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any old business
None, Chairman.
and new business?
So yes, we have Saranac Power Partners. Chris, do you want to give a brief overview? We do have John Gopi and Kevin McLeod, their counsel, both on the line for this.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. So recall that the current pilot for Saranac Power Partners expires at the end of March. At a previous meeting, we adopted a deviation notice resolution authorizing a deviation notice going out to tax jurisdictions, letting them know that the pilot was being extended. That went out. So today, the first part of this, and I'll get into the second, but the first resolution is authorizing the deviation and authorizing the IDA to enter into the documents extending the pilot for 5 years. Just to give you, before we go into that motion, the second motion relates to the following. After the deviation notice went out, the company, in competition with the IDA and us, made certain requests to further alter the pilot. A lot of this came from the school district, which wants to be out of the pilot and get their money instead of the pilot through a host community agreement, which is, from our perspective, it's okay. The town, the county are left exactly where they were. However, because that's also a deviation, we'll need to authorize sending a new deviation letter out today for the second piece. So we're going to extend the first part, extend the pilot for 5 years, just so that's live and we don't have to worry about that. But then we go to the second process for these additional amendments. The deviation letter will go out today or tomorrow, letting them know. And what are those additional things that are being?
I have it right here, Chris, if you
Yeah.
want me to. So the first is, well, Chris mentioned the school is not going to receive the pilot, but a post-community agreement. And the reason that they want to do this is because it doesn't impact their tax cap. So that's generally speaking why schools are not usually following the pilots. So this board and the municipalities expressed a strong desire for this to be the last pilot extension. It would be very difficult for the company for them to predict 5 years from now. So what they propose is that they will add language to the pilot that says no further pilot extension will be sought or approved unless the company demonstrates financial hardship posing substantial risk of facility closure within 12 months of application. Beginning in year 4, the assessor would value the facility on the assessment roll for special district purposes, and the company would be permitted to challenge that assessment if desired. This would allow and prompt the town and company to negotiate the assessment and hopefully provide some certainty regarding what the assessment would be following the pilot. Because as you remember, their Saranac Power Party's concern about the assessment is that it would the town indicates, that it would significantly jump. However, they argue that what they're proposing it would actually be valued at is not accurate. So that would be something they would have to figure out between the town and the company. And so we also discussed an escalation because we felt that that would show a little bit more good faith in that not just getting the same pilot, but actually putting a little bit more money into the game. So they what was the escalation? Because I don't actually.
Yeah, so before, in the current pilot, there's this concept of free cash flow, which is a fancy way of saying if they hit certain revenue targets, the pilot payments go up. So currently, if they hit 4.834 million and above, the pilot payments go up to $420,000 from 270, I want to say. So as part of this modification, it's a benefit to tax jurisdictions. Instead of 4.834 being the trigger, it's now 4.5 million. So it's a quicker trigger to get those additional payments. They also added on the back end, if they get above $6 million, the payments go to $600,000, which wasn't a concept in the current pilot. So that shows the company's willing to provide a little bit more pilot payments in case if they get these targets, which is only beneficial to the tax jurisdictions. So all this is going to be is summarized in the deviation letter. Once Molly signs off on it, we'll send it out to the second deviation letter out to the tax jurisdictions.
And how are the two actions by this board connected? How are we connecting? How are we connecting the two? The straight extension, obviously, we need to do because of timing.
It's good.
And now the second one, has the new terms in it. How are we
Yeah.
connecting?
So we currently have an amended and restated pilot agreement after we got amended like 5 times. That's from 2018. We'll do a first amendment to pilot extending for 5 years, just so that's locked in. There'll be a simple first amendment to pilot to make that happen. Once this second deviation letter goes out, goes to tax jurisdictions and wait 30 days. So presumably because of where we're timing, it'll probably be proven to the May meeting rather than April.
Yeah.
That'll be done by a second amendment to pilot agreement. So that's the first amendment, just extends it back. Second amendment, you've already got the 5-year locked in place. It does these new revenue targets. It takes the school district out of the pilot agreement, et cetera, et cetera.
How do we ensure that the company executes the second one?
That was my question.
Well, Kevin Cloud's on the phone
Yeah.
right now. We had a good discussion about this, and obviously I referenced that that's important. We don't want the. company
By the way,
back-
I'm
I
not saying anything that would happen.
I did the same thing.
John or Kevin, that's not my point. My point is that I think as a board, we need to ensure that what we want to do is actually going to happen. What we've all agreed on is actually. going to happen.
And Kevin and I discussed this, and he did mention that the company is more than happy, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Kevin, but happy to provide any assurances we need. I mean, I don't know, something in writing to that effect, I think would be something we could come up with.
And I mean, I do have in writing from their council.
Sure,
And this is
sure.
what they want to.
Docs in this room.
Yeah, that's an accurate summary of our conversation. This is essentially, we're asking the IDA to approve this. So we've given our assurances. We'd give our assurances again in writing if we needed to. And I guess we've made this request. So now it is in the hands of the IDA to approve that request. I guess some assurances would be that we will not withdraw that request in the meantime.
Yeah, and then Shannon makes actually a really good point. We could cook into the document, the First Amendment, saying, we expect this other piece to happen, but if it doesn't happen by X date, everything's off the table. Not that I think that's gonna happen, but
No, I just, and
It's a good
again,
thought.
I'm not trying to upset the company. My point is, I think we need a clear record
Assurance,
of
yeah.
what we discussed and approved.
so Kevin, why don't we huddle on that? I think it's a simple letter of some type from the company. We presumably do the trick on this.
I'm fine with that. Yep, we can talk offline about that.
Fair point. So that is the 30,000 foot view on these two resolutions. Happy to answer any questions.
I think it's critical. And I know Molly already has. But you make sure both the school district and the town of Plattsburgh are fully aware of what's happening, such that when they get a straight extender, they don't go into panic mode.
Already had that conversation.
That is a good point, and
By the way, for the record, Chris said I had 2 good points today.
he said that every day. Because Because the school district is going to be paid out of host community agreement. And I'll get really legal dorky here, that's technically called a diversion or a general municipal law, so the other tax jurisdictions have to sign off in writing. So the tax jurisdictions are gonna be well aware of that because they're gonna provide a resolution.
Supervisor already
Yes.
brought up to me that he would be willing to pass a resolution.
Sure.
So we just need to know.
So now provide the county's resolution as well, so everything's above board on the table.
Thank
you. So that's it.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? So it looks like, we've got 3 resolutions. We need to make a motion to approve public hearing minute first. May I get that motion? Dave? John, or, what's your name? Mike? Make a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And
Just a quick idea. So we did a public hearing for this because we're adjusting,
Yep.
taking it out. No new public hearing for this one because we're just tinkering with the revenues coming out,
Okay.
free cash flow.
I do.
Not another
You have it.
$1,000 in financial assistance, so no need for any public hearing.
okay, may I get a motion to approve resolution 03-24-01, authorizing a deviation from the agency's uniform tax exemption policy, and B, the amendment of an existing amended and restated payment in lieu of tax agreement and certain other documents in connection with the Saranac Power Partners LP project. Can I get that motion?
I'll make it.
John? Dave, second. Any discussion? If not, roll call vote. Dave Hoover,
Yes.
Mike Zerlin,
Yes.
Mark Letta.
Yes.
Peter Five is excused. John Van Etten,
Yes.
Joey Tremblay is excused, and Trent Trahan, yes. Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve resolution number 03-24-02, authorizing the executive director to send a letter to the chief executive officers of the affected taxing jurisdictions, informing them of the proposed deviation from the agency's uniform tax exemption policy in connection with the proposed supplemental amendment to the Saranac Power Partners LP project. So, Mark, second. John, any discussion? Not, roll call vote. Mike Zerlo,
Yes.
Mark Letta,
Yes.
Peter Five is excused, John Van Etten,
Yes.
Joey Tremblay is excused, Trent Trahan, yes, Dave Hoover,
Yes.
motion carries.
I think we have one more, right?
Yes, no more.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we passed all 3 of them? I thought we only passed.
yeah,
The first, it just come
I
out.
don't-
First was just a motion.
Oh, okay, sorry, my mistake. Okay, so yes, and thank you, Kevin and John for being on the line, and you feel free to hang around and hear about all the other things, but feel free to take your leave as well.
Thank you very much on behalf of the company. We appreciate it. And well, Chris, I'll be in touch with you. I will hop off. I assume John will as well. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just wanted to touch base on this because, as you know, last year we came to an agreement on AES/Noble. AES is still working through their 94Cs and whatnot. And the Altona agreement expires this year. So at this point, we're looking at, we talked with the company, we're going to be doing the same thing with the Altona project, and hopefully, Chris, their application is forthcoming at that.
So they said.
So they said. So I don't know if anybody had any questions with regard to that, but we're, it's kind of they're not IDA projects right now technically because they have an agreement to pay the county a pilot payment, but it's not really a pilot. So
So the, just want to make sure Northern Adirondack is fully informed
they are,
and the township,
yes.
Beckley Township. They know what's going
There was some confusion with the town of Altona believing that they
Right.
the payments were late, but they actually, it's when the company started paying them. They were okay with the fact that they knew they were getting the same payment as they were getting last year, and that's how they did their budget, and that's what they were counting on, so.
Is there a sunset for this, which you proposed initially, or is there any anticipated time that we would expect to receive something?
Well, the best case scenario is to get the applications pronto, so we don't have to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Because really, this extra pilot payment concept is. It's
Great.
fine. It's fine, but it's not as straightforward as a new project application and just pilot agreement. Getting something locked in.
Yeah.
So,
So there's any scrutinization if it drags on, I guess, what are the potential downsides if it drags on?
well, the issue would be, and then we ran into this a little bit with Sarah and Power Partners, the idea of extending pilot payments on a project that's not new anymore, the project's already expired. It's certainly something that we can deal with, it's just, that's kind of low hanging fruit for the ABO and others. So, wait a minute, why are you extending the pilot? Now, we showed and Sarah and Power Partners, well, look, there's jobs here, school district, underlying tax jurisdiction wants to happen. We're making the school district happy with this host community agreement concept. So there's ways around it, but in general, you always want a new project, a new application. Because the ABO will say, wait a minute. It has to be a new project. It's better to have a new project with new jobs, et cetera, et cetera. But why are you extending it? That's their first argument. So that's why, but I thought on the last I heard from AES was they thought about the third quarter.
That's what they thought.
Yeah, for application. But we should keep following up.
That was what the last sentence is, so we keep following up, trying to
Yeah.
minimize any.
Did I just do a George Craig? Did I just talk for 5 minutes?
No,
Well, that's it. There you go.
So that's that project. Other business, I'm gonna give a couple other updates that are not on my report because they happened after I completed the report. In talking with Beacon Town School, am I okay to like talk on something? Okay, in talking with Beacon Town School District for Saranac Power Partners. It was then proposed by he's an interim superintendent, took our friend Mr. Mannix's place, and I don't know what the plan is for a permanent superintendent that moved there. And he has a different experience with his IDA and where he was in, I think it was Warren County. And the way they have always done IDA projects is to always get things in host community agreements. So when he learned about the Chippy project, he sounded the alarm to all of the other superintendents saying, why did you agree to that? This is what we should be doing. And has asked if the board would consider redoing the pilot for Chippy for all of those school districts to have host community agreements. I don't know what that, they also said that they realized that would be obviously some legal costs associated with that they would be willing to pay because they feel it is in their best interest to move that forward.
So Chippy, we dealt with Chippy on multiple items down in the state, highly negotiated. So the idea of taking the school district out of, it's not impossible, but it would be, I think it'd be met with quite a bit of resistance from the company. If they convince other tax jurisdictions, but someone to stay, from just a drafting perspective, it would be a nightmare, but that's what we could do, it's fine. I just would let them know, the school district, that we'll talk to the company, but based on company council.
When did we close this, brother?
Prior to my tenure, right?
No. You're a good question.
When we closed, oh yeah, it was. Okay, so it was closed in 2022.
So I just want the school district to understand that while this is technically possible, it isn't just flipping a switch.
Right.
And there'd be, quite a few costs involved.
Yes.
So.
So I wanted to get the boards, it's also your decision to, we don't have to do this. So I wanted to get your opinions, your feedback on whether this is something you wanted to entertain. Because if your answer is no, then Chris is not gonna approach it.
And this would require sign off again from the
Back to the
township
diversion, right?
and the county again via resolution.
Yeah.
And did anybody give me the answer on when we close this?
I think it was the
22?
first quarter of 2022.
I mean, we're 2+ years into a project that we benefited and closed on. I mean, that's
And I understand where the thrust.
kind of a weird
Yeah.
request. I mean, there's been, now they've not paid a pilot payment yet, right? 'Cause
Correct.
They pay after,
When it's done.
when it's done. Okay. So we're not doing,
And I think we're gonna get more of this from tax jurisdictions that understand the property tax cap, how it counts against them. And I think we're gonna see more and more of this. It's just.
I'm telling you from the county's perspective.
Yeah.
We have no
Sure.
aversion to facilitating whatever all taxing jurisdictions, but in this case, the school districts want to do. My issue here is that we're 2+ years after we closed on a project.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I mean, the former superintendent of that school district was very keen on, you know, we have done other projects in that school district that we have facilitated a host community agreement in lieu of a pilot payment.
Right.
And that wasn't the request when we were going through this project.
Right, you're absolutely right. And it's come at the beginning of the process. This is a layup. But to do it now would be a lot of work. So,
I agree with that. I mean, 2 years into a project and going back and reconstructing it.
My sense is that again, I want to help the school district, as so if the school district's listening, I'm all about doing what they want to do. My sense is if we go back and do this, I mean, what precedent is that setting
Does it also,
such that other school districts are gonna, projects in other school districts are gonna want us to
Yeah.
open up that window again?
that's a good point.
And what are the risks, though, I guess, from the standpoint of opening? I mean, what's the risk to the school district? Well, what's the risk to us?
No risk to the school district. It probably does assist them in how they calculate their tax cap formula.
Sure, okay.
So it'd be a benefit to the school district. It
So,
would not, it would not hinder the pilot payments to the county and or the town. Because, those wouldn't change at all.
would there be a risk, Chris, in the city of Plattsburgh also trying to get back involved in this, given their feedback on this? They were not real happy when they figured out they were the only ones not in this, and it's not because we left them out, it's the way the pilot was done, and this was done up and down. How far in,
Wasn't there
they're still out of it. They're not in that path.
okay,
Yeah, wasn't there a technicality that
There was.
the school district didn't go
it
to?
physically like
to the lake.
didn't reach, yeah.
Yeah.
Where the line is going, there was like you had to have, whatever mileage to the
Oh,
land.
yeah, that's fairly clear. I looked at the
Yeah.
map. I mean,
Yeah.
in the Plattsburgh City School was, we certainly, and I remember asking the question, why are they excluded from the pilot?
Yeah,
So it's not like we don't.
I just want to
to
make sure that didn't give them an opportunity.
Just the
Okay.
geography stuff to
Okay.
map. My bigger concern here is if this was a vanilla, what I call vanilla pilot, simple pilot, something like this. Putting aside the fact that it would set a precedent, which I think it would.
Yeah.
That's one thing, but this, I mean, if you want someone to fall asleep at night, I'll give you this pilot agreement. Because it's so nuanced. I mean, very good lawyers on the company side, we work with them all the time, but everything is negotiated. So come in and say, let's pull this out, it just would be quite a lot of work, quite a lot of expense. You know,
So I'm wondering if you could at least let this board know. I mean, I think that's a fact that I would be curious about is what Chippy would say about this.
I'll touch base with the council. at some point.
Okay, so the next project is, Beekman Towers. We continue to be in a hold because of this regulation that, was kind of slid in by HCR. I do know that, the legislature, our assemblyman and the head of housing and a couple of others are very in tune to this issue and are trying to figure out how they can close the projects that are kind of in the hopper already. You may have received some sort of financial assistance from the state in order to close Beekman. This is unclear at this point, what he received and whether that impacts his ability to do bond financing with us. So I did ask him for an update on Friday when I learned about this, and he has not provided me with that update. So, and how that impacts this transaction. So kind of in a whole pattern.
Because last we spoke, there was issues with us providing those bonds.
The gist is that for years, IDAs would do low-income housing bonds on rehabbing existing projects, existing housing, low-income housing. And everyone's surprised across the state, HCR, which is involved in providing low-income housing tax credits, which they need to do the bond deals, said, we're not going to give you the 4% tax credit anymore for rehab projects. So that effectively carves out the IDAs being able to do these transactions. So across the state, law firms, lobbyists, Molly, EDC, they're all getting into the ear of the governor, cabinet, what have you, to try to get this back into place. Because it was dropped on everyone. No one saw this coming. So the problem is, unless they get these tax credits, it's not worth their time to do a bond deal. So in order to do this bond deal, we have to get this 4% lift. And that's what everybody's working on behind the scenes.
And then lastly, so Friday afternoon, I received an application from Schluter. They are looking to do a $198 million facility. It says they're asking for a pilot deviation, but I actually didn't see where it was deviating. They're proposing a category 3 benefit, the 2% escalator. So I wanted to get that on your attention. They want to break ground in June. The timeline on that is kind of tight. And whether they're able to prove the but-for clause is going to be something that we would want to ask them as they move forward in that process.
Yeah, I'm for the record, I'm a big fan of the company, and so don't read into my comments at all, because I just concerned if now that the spotlight is on municipal IDAs, and they are not taking any sort of mortgage out on this massive property, and are contemplating paying it with private equity. What does that look like in the but-for analysis? That's my concern. I mean, I can tell you that if it happened, and in the ADO and or Senator Skoufis, who's coming after IDAs, is looking at this transaction, I just would like to protect our good name here. So that's my thought. And this is not an aversion to benefiting the company. I really don't know that answer, but I can tell you that I think we should be looking at it quite hard.
But aren't we at the same time protecting our economic well-being by making sure that facility is put here instead of in California or
I would agree with that. It would be Texas, but I would agree with that. But the fact that they procured land, have got municipal approvals, and are have not talked to us yet, is giving me a little uneasiness.
I think that's fair. I mean, one thing to think about, we talked about it briefly, is we had to kick the tires on this significantly, but talk to the company and figure out, okay, you're still gonna do the project, but maybe you weren't doing it at this scale, maybe you weren't gonna do it in this length of time.
Yeah.
I think we would need some kind of findings to these good questions from the company in writing, say, this is why we're doing this is why I'm going through the IDA, this is why we need the IDA, because I think you're right. For a project like this, for a company that's
We have not heard from the company yet. So, I mean, all we had was a paper application. So we have not.
just came in, right?
Friday afternoon. So we've not talked to their principals at all. you know, maybe we leave it up to the executive director to say, you're in receipt of the paper application. Here was some initial thoughts, you know, or do you talk to count, I mean, I think the presenter would be their counsel anyways.
Yeah,
Human.
yeah.
So, you know, maybe we want, you know, you want to have conversations with them. I mean, again, my goal is not to not provide a benefit. There's a lot of negatives in that. But if we do provide a benefit, I, for one, need to feel comfortable that we're not going to be besmirched by the
Yeah.
Senate Investigations Committee and or the Authority Budget Office.
Completely agree. I think getting this
And
in
there,
front of the company is, you
Yeah.
know,
and I mean, there's been some kind of disparaging articles that are running about, IDAs in the front of our newspaper over the last 2 months, so.
And we just read it on, it was in the, it was in our paper.
They're state-
It
they're
was
state
a
articles.
statewide, but our local paper picked it up.
Which, by the way, I did call them and say, you know, that's 2 now. You think maybe you could come talk to me about what we actually do here? since
just
you're not-
having ideas in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the discussion about the legislature, you know, kind of going after them. So anyway, so there's, keep that on your radar.
It was factual. It was
It
a
was,
broad brush. Why don't they, why don't they say in there, and many have done it correctly and have looked at A, B, and C prior to providing a benefit, or talked about the ability to claw back a benefit. No, none of that was.
That's not sexy.
Right, doesn't.
Exactly.
so it's kind of a good,
Buy a paper with this, like,
that's kind of a good segue too. I just wanted to provide you a quick update, and if you want to add anything about Clinton County, chime in, but, at the Economic Development Committee, I've been trying to tell them what we have going on. Because it's very clear to me that there's a lack of understanding of what we do. There was a real concept that, we are providing benefits to companies who are just going to leave, which is, as we all know, not the case. So, just trying to keep them up to date in the different projects that we're benefiting, and trying to work with them to get them to understand this is what we do. You know, there was conversations like, well, why don't you do your pilots backwards so that they have no taxes on kids if they want to stay? And I said, that's just not practical. And I said, that would also mean you as the county would receive no tax benefit for, you know, the unforeseen. So, just trying to get them to educate them and get them to understand what we do, and just provide them with updates so they can see the kind of good stuff we're doing. We did also receive $3 million from New York State for the Fast New York Shovel Ready program for the former airport location, also known as CBIG. So that we can finish building our road, which is great. And do you want to talk about the CBES stuff, which how it impacts the sport?
You can.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about $3 million.
Oh, well, you can talk about the $3 million. So, so I don't know how many years ago, but the county sold
Yeah.
land. Yeah,
So-
okay, you have the background.
So several years
Several
ago, the county
Could help himself.
sell acreage to CB Tech. CB Tech is now contemplating another project with a third party to facilitate the construction. And they wanted to purchase additionally. I opted for, I didn't feel as though the county legislature would just say, give more land, approve the sale of more land to CB Tech when the initial acreage has not been used or developed at all. So, you know, we're pretty much negotiated a swap. So I'm going to gain whatever we sell the new land for. I'm gonna buy my old land back. So it's essentially a swap, which is very good because the position of the siting of the new sale is further east, which means it would be probably several years before we even contemplate development there. The parcel we're buying back is literally adjacent to our new road and adjacent to the TDC parcel, so will be immediately developable. So, we're essentially gonna develop two places, when we were probably, develop one, and that one would have been on the west side of Molly's new road, which now leaves, that Class A developable land available to an outsider. It's a good transaction, things still to do, but I do believe that's gonna happen, which may lead, that last part, which may lead to a company seeking benefits, from this group.
And the company that is building the facility has indicated that they will be pursuing bond financing for the IDA to do this project. I think it's a $40 million project.
Is it a,
The CIDC one. Okay.
oh, okay, all right. I got it.
So,
What's CB Tech?
oh,
CB
it's our
Tech
boat.
Proceeds.
Yeah.
And what,
Champlain Valley.
and what are they expanding their? I mean, what are they actually gonna do in this new facility?
So what it's gonna do is, their goal is they right now do not have enough physical space to accommodate the amount of special needs students that they have. They said they need 6 times what they have right now, that they cannot serve. So those kids are staying in school district and not really getting the services that they need. So they will expand their special needs department into the facility that is there now, and all of the technical will move into this new, the hairdressing, the paint shops, the mechanics, all of those different things, the welding, all of those things will move over there. So, all right, so I think that's all I really have for my end, unless anybody has any questions.
Nope, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
And then we have to go into the CRC meeting.
Shay,
I'll second.
John, discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now open up the Clinton County Capital Resource Corporation meeting for March 18th at 1:10. And declare a quorum and waive the reading of the notice and of the draft minutes and look for a motion to approve. John, Mike, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mark, treasury report?
Okay, for the CCCRC income, the organization received $100 from NFI and $200 from Schomburg in February. Expenses, the organization paid no expenses in February. End of report.
Any questions from Mark? Okay, get a motion to approve the treasurer's report. Dave? John? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mark, again with the audit committee.
Yes, action or recommendation approval of the resolution accepting audit and authorizing posting same to Paris.
Okay, may I get a motion to make that posting?
Make that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. No old business. Looks like there is some new business.
Yep, we just have to approve the payment of the invoice from Lamb and Lurch for $1,500. There were some various actions he had to take with regard to Schoenbeck and the concurrent letters that were needed for their new site activation and our new fee schedule.
Any second? Dave? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business for the capital resource?
None, Chairman.
If not, I make a motion to adjourn. Mark? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.